Think back to your youth. Let's say when you were in your 20s. I know that's a long time for some of you. Think about some of the people you hung out with when you were in your 20s. Would any of them have been worthy or ready to be called an apostle of Jesus? Think about yourself when you were in your 20s. What kind of person were you? Were you ready at that time to be called a follower of Christ? And I think if we're honest, we'd have to admit that neither of us, nor most of our friends, were probably ready for that kind of calling. So I find it amazing that Jesus called 12 men. When you think about it, were most likely in their mid-20s to be his closest disciples. Today we hear how he gives them an amazing amount of authority to heal the sick and to drive out demons. And today we would be incredulous, I think, if we saw some young adults with that kind of authority. You might say to such people, you're way too young. You have to live life. Get a little experience under your belt. We might be a little doubtful that such young people could even know what they were doing. But Jesus called these men to follow him, and they, for some reason, responded. And as far as we know, they all gave up some kind of career or livelihood or family life to follow Christ. They might ask, were they just mature beyond their years? Were they simply ready to get out of town and do something new? Did they know what they were getting into? Even so, the fact is Jesus called them, and he formed them, and he sent them out to lay the foundation of the Christian community, to really continue his ministry, to build up the kingdom of God, to save our world from sin and death. I think the calling of the 12 illustrates the wisdom of God, which we are told chooses the weak and the vulnerable and makes them strong. So it's Christ who prepared these young people to do what they were able to do. Were they perfect? Not at all. Did they learn to grow in their faith and mature into men of God? Yes. What this tells me also is that even though we may not feel ourselves to be adequate to serve Christ in some way, that is what Christ is asking of us. Even though we may be sinners, Christ chooses us to do amazing things. And what makes us ready to serve is our openness to do what God desires of us. We may have obstacles that we feel are standing in the way of serving Christ, but it is the Lord himself who will remove those obstacles, or at least give us the power to overcome those obstacles so that we can do what he is asking us to do. When I was only 23 years old, I felt God was calling me to follow in a particular way. I felt the calling, but did I really know what it would be like? Did I know what God was demanding or asking of me? Probably not. But what I learned over the few years of my seminary formation is that all I had to do was to be open and to trust that Christ would accomplish in me what he was asking of me. Many of you in the same way may have felt the call to be married and to start families in your youth. You probably couldn't anticipate what marriage and family life was going to be like. But you took the step, and here you are today. So through the joys and sorrows and the challenges of our years, we have made it this far to be here this morning, and that's a good thing. So let's take time today to thank the Lord for calling us in his wisdom to serve him and to do what we can do to build up his kingdom, and most of all for accepting us as we are.